Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to Every Rose Has Its Thorn. This is a bi-weekly time to chat about all things Bachelor, Bachelor Nation from a queer feminist perspective. Hello, everyone. And this week, my guest is EJ. EJ, we want to introduce yourself?
Hey, yes, my name is EJ. Coffee and I know each other through roller derby because how else would we know each other? In my day job, I'm a producer and I love it. I work for a startup called Ven. You should check us out. I love Bachelor and Bachelor Nation and really all things involving The Bachelor. And I think it's something that a lot of people feel guilty about. I know I feel guilty about it from time to time, but it's like it's really fun to analyze it, and like when you start to just peel back the layers, you realize just like how complex the whole web is spun, and it's fascinating.
And you are like the only friend that I've gotten to like regularly listen to any of Game of Roses, which I am totally obsessed with. It's my favorite Bachelor podcast. But it's all about how The Bachelor is a game like sports and how everything is connected to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will pitch that some other time. So what I wanted to get started with was a quick summary of the past two episodes. Since the show's bi-weekly, it means that I did not talk about episode 2 yet. So just very quickly, in episode 2, so we had our first one-on-one, which Matt went on with Bree. Bree was also the person who got the first flower at the first rose ceremony, which actually there is a statistical analysis of the Bachelor account that did a deep dive, and with Game of Roses published some information that basically you have a statistically better chance of making it far in The Bachelor if you get the first rose rather than the first impression rose. So if you get the first rose at the rose ceremony, you have a better chance of going far by almost like an entire placement than getting the first impression rose. That doesn't track to The Bachelorette because first impression roses on The Bachelorette tend to go really far, which is like also like another thing that we could probably talk about sometime.
I would love to talk about that. That is fascinating, and I have thoughts.
I know, me too. So Bree goes on the first one-on-one. There should be a picture of it. I have basically pictures of all of these like main plot points. So Bree went on the first one-on-one. They went ATVing and hot tubbing, and then there were fireworks. You know that it's a big deal if there are fucking fireworks.
Everyone else had to see the fireworks.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone else always has to see the fireworks, but now it's COVID, so they're on a resort, and as big as this like weird ass Pennsylvania resort is, anything big that happens, everybody's gonna see it, and of course they're gonna film it. So Bree got the fireworks date. They flipped their ATVs, they said nice things to each other. It went well. The next thing was the group date, which had this weird capture the flag game. And very specifically, so it started out as a photo shoot in bridal wear. And this happens like every few seasons. Like they make people take pictures with the lead.
Wedding pictures.
Which is its own like weird fucked up thing. And it's always this one dude, this guy Franco, taking the pictures. It's a whatever.
I don't think I know that.
But it turned into a game of capture the flag where they had to capture the rose and the rules were super unclear. And it's this whole thing.
Paint and cake on each other.
But it was like, I didn't know if that did anything other than get the other person dirty. Like, did it give them a time delay? Did it get them out? Or was it just to humiliate them? Which it probably was. It was probably just to humiliate them. And it's definitely a thing in these dates where every group dates, especially for like the beginning of the seasons, where they involve like a high level of humiliation and potential for injury.
Yeah. Yeah, they like it's like they literally are like fight now.
Yeah,
At some point. Always. And that's also with the Bachelorette too. I mean, like I remember there was one season, I can't remember whose season it was, but they had all of the men playing banked track roller derby.
Oh yeah, that was Hannah's season, Hannah B.
Yeah.
But they also had a banked track game in was it Ben Higgins? No, was it not Ben Higgins? It was it Sean Lowe or Ben Higgins? But basically, they made Sarah Heron, who has one arm, she was born with one arm, play roller derby, basically to have her have a meltdown on the bank track because she has to work on balance differently than someone who has two arms.
I do remember that.
The show is fucked up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this date happened. It was, I don't know, kind of weird. Like the whole episode itself, by structure, it was not the most exciting episode. This led into a one-on-one date with Sarah Trott, who features heavily in the next episode, but they went in a plane. And the plane, again, is a very good sign. Like these early one-on-one dates tend to be like these like staple big deal things. So while this is all happening, one of the women back at the house, Victoria, who we'll talk about her more later, but she basically starts this giant weird fight with her roommate, Marilyn. And this continues to the rose ceremony, where we get most of the way through, and then Sarah Trott, who had the rose from the one-on-one earlier, like half passes out in the middle of the ceremony, which is like also a weird thing. And she already has a rose, and there's not really pressure on her, so it's kind of unclear why this happens. But Sarah faints. Then we get to we end the episode on that.
To be continued.
Yeah, start the next episode 3/4 of the way through the rose ceremony where she fainted. They don't even give all of the roses out on screen, which is notable because the one person who got a one-on-one in episode 3, Serena P, did not get a rose on screen during the rose ceremony.
Yeah.
So the next thing that you get is a group date. Faints or swoons. No, she like weirdly fell off the risers.
Yeah, but she just like tripped and then was trying to play it off by fainting.
Yeah, or
kind of what it looked like.
Or like she was drunk. It was weird. It looked semi-intentional.
Which now I definitely think it could have been.
Me too. But whether or not she like was lightheaded and like let herself fall, or like, I don't know. Anyway, there's a group date. The whole point of this group date is to write erotica about Matt. So everyone on the group date has to talk about like what they would like to do if they were alone with Matt. And 90% of them are really bad at writing erotica.
Can I talk about my favorite part of that?
Yes, please.
Was Ashley I reading the like as everybody walks in, you have Ashley I Canetti, who, like, if you're not familiar, she's kind of become a Bachelor personality after being on her Soul season, right? And you know, she's generally fun, and you know, she's a big personality.
Known for crying.
Yeah, known for crying, lots of feelings. But she's reading erotica on the stage, and like is actually like, oh, and that was written by Chris Harrison. And
I had no idea that this, not that I wanted to read this book, but I had no idea that this book he wrote was like an erotic romance novel. It was not what I expected.
Yeah, no, not at all. But you know, it does give new meaning to my candle.
Yes. Oh, wait. I have to also light my candle. EJ gave this to me for my birthday, actually.
Because it's too perfect. You see, it's a Chris Harrison, Saint Harrison prayer candle, and it smells.
Yeah, it smells really nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like vaguely demonic for a Chris Harrison prayer candle. I really like it.
Yeah.
So we get on this group date where they're all writing erotica. Katie, who we're going to talk about a bit in this episode, is like the only one who really writes good erotica, and Victoria, the dramatic one from earlier, writes this like super over the top, like kind of like attempt at writing like kinky fan fiction, but like it's like if a 13-year-old was writing kinky fan fiction.
It was hilarious. I thought it was so funny, and like honestly, I have lots of feelings about Victoria, but up until this point, I was like, not into it. But and I thought it was going to be way worse. And then when she actually did it, I was like, oh, okay.
I want to get to this. We're going to talk about Victoria, I think, first after the episode summary, but I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
So then we get to the nighttime portion of the date, which is where Sarah comes, and Sarah, who is not on the date, gets super anxious and she just has to go talk to Matt. And anytime someone interrupts a date or goes and talks to someone late at night, it's because the producers are letting them and probably encouraging them to do it, because they're trapped in a house. You can't go anywhere that's on camera without the explicit permission of producers. It just wouldn't happen. And there's also like, they're on this gigantic resort and there's no way that Sarah would know where they were. So Sarah comes and steals from Katie. It means that Katie is having a conversation with Matt at the cocktail party, and Sarah says, "Can I come steal you for a moment?" It's especially notable because she wasn't on the date, and that's like a big no-no in Bachelor land.
General human lands.
Yeah, I mean, so this continues to play out over the night, but we're going to be talking a lot about the major players in that. We're having an entire section on both Sarah and Victoria's dynamic and also about Katie. So leaving that for later, the next thing you get is Serena P's one-on-one. Also notable because Sarah, again, gets attention from Matt at the start. She's apparently been hiding in her room, and Matt goes into her room to talk to her before his one-on-one date with Serena. Again, not something that you typically see. Serena's date is very, very standard. She gets a horseback riding. Again, good sign for her. Their date goes like super smoothly. They have a moment with a donkey that's funny, but she doesn't get the weird comedy music. She gets the cute music, so you know that they're not making a joke out of her. And then at the end, there's this giant weird confrontation with Sarah back at the house that's kind of led by Victoria. And it ends with Sarah making the decision to leave early. She has a heart-to-heart with Katie, who Katie comes off looking like an incredible person after, which, and then Sarah leaves and there's a dramatic moment. She says goodbye to Matt. She gets more of a thing. And we go from there. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was Victoria. And Victoria is super over the top. There's an image just for this. Her limo entrance, she came in, she calls herself the queen. She is Queen Victoria. And by the way, her limo entrance pissed me the fuck off because she's like, "I'm Queen Victoria and you're King Matt." And I was like, you have the golden opportunity to call him King James, because you could just be fucking British monarchs together and it's a perfect joke, and you missed it. You missed this opportunity. His last name is James and you insisted on calling him King Matt. Anyway, I was like, but I don't think that she put that much thought into this. I think that she
not at all. No.
A pageant queen, and she wanted to just play with that. And in this second episode, she chooses to pick on her roommate, Marilyn. And Marilyn is honestly, she's a quiet, sweet woman of color. And she isn't really fighting back, but also no one's really helping her. And she tells Matt her story. She has like a nice conversation with Matt. Victoria then goes to Matt and is like, Marilyn's a terrible person. She's doing all these things to me. And then Marilyn gets a chance to explain her side to Matt, but the producers probably were like, Matt, you got to keep Victoria. So Marilyn goes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of never talked about again. And it's this very like clear moment where Marilyn was this like super easy target for Victoria because she was never going to win. And she didn't have the same room to defend herself and be as big because obviously, like if you've seen any reality TV, white women who act big and dramatic get very different edits than women of color who do.
They absolutely do. And it also like, look, like if you're there and you are someone who is genuinely trying to just like be there and be a part of the experience, like if you get sucked into that kind of thing on this show, you are now nothing more than a prop. Like
right.
it is impossible to break free of that in any capacity. You're either going home as the villain or the, kind of like what we saw here of just like a clear wrong decision that, I was watching this with my partner and he's like not into it, but like watched some episodes with me. And I was like, the second Victoria came on screen, I was like, she's the one that's going to stick around way longer than you think she could and way longer than makes sense because she makes good TV. And
also looking at previews, I'm pretty sure she's going to stick around even longer than I thought because she's showing up in more outfits. And
I'm like, is this the oh, what was his name on Hannah B's season?
Like, are we talking like Luke P?
Yeah, Luke.
I don't think she's the Luke P. I think one of the new girls is going to be Luke P.
Oh yeah, they're starting to tee that up for sure.
Because I think that the new girls are going to take away drama from Victoria because they got a different kind of vibe and edit in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've decided that having COVID closed seasons isn't dramatic enough. So for The Bachelorette, we got a surprise change in Bachelorette mid-season. And for The Bachelor, we're getting surprise new contestants midway through the season.
Isn't that unheard of? Is it?
They're like, bringing in 5. They're bringing in 5.
That's a lot.
And not included in the 5, which they already talked about in the trailer, is a past contestant who's then coming on.
Right. I saw that too. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Right. And I feel like one of those things by itself is interesting. But
I mean, and then we'll get there, but then I wouldn't be surprised if we also get a Sarah return.
I will get there. I actually don't think we will, but I can say why later.
Yes.
So there is a so then Victoria turns her sights on Sarah. She like in this like super ugly puffy dress is giving interviews about how she'd be like love for Sarah to go home, and she's like cackling about it. And what's interesting here is that the like big confrontation that everybody has with Sarah is so clearly stoked by Victoria. She's like somehow gotten everybody. It's like suddenly she turns into a much more subtle bully. And she somehow gets everybody to work with her because Sarah is like a clear front runner. She's gotten to talk about her own family history. There's my cat. Her dad has ALS. She helps out at home. She gave up her job to help out at home. There's a lot of attention given to this, which like is an edit that tells you that she's an important person. And Matt is clearly into her. And Grady's gone.
It's pulling time away from everyone else. Like that's what the tension is, and you know it.
And like Victoria like very successfully gets everyone to say like, it's not that what Sarah's doing is like particularly nice either, and like they have a right to be mad, but the like amount of people ganging up on her is like actually kind of surprising. It's a lot. It's a weird moment, and it's very clearly led by Victoria in a way that if you were there in person, you probably wouldn't see that she's like pulling the puppet strings.
Right, especially when you know, I have suspicions based on what edits we've been presented, because we know that like the real story is probably not what we're actually seeing on the screen. But like, you know, after Sarah had crashed the group date, Victoria was the first one to kind of follow her out and reach out in, you know, a seemingly genuine way to be like, look, we're friends and like we've been cool, like we like basically kind of saying like, well, we have a connection and I know you're not like this, so like what gives? And was like,
and Sarah kind of is like, no, I'm a mean girl too, fuck off.
And but I guess like that made me start to think, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Victoria had started kind of talking to the other girls more positively about Sarah when the other girls were more I guess more upfront about their unhappiness with the situation from the start.
Basically, I think Victoria is a much smarter villain than I initially gave her credit for.
Yeah.
So the next picture I wanted to show, it's just a meme from Bachelor clues, but Victoria also has these like really weird, nonsensical speech patterns. And she like does these seemingly intentional misspeaks. I'm going to wait for the meme to come up just because I don't remember everything that it says off the top of my head. But she goes into the confession. Yeah. So this is after she gets Marilyn booted. She goes, Marilyn, manipulative, toxicity, jesters, Queen, Victoria, positivity, realness, Matt's heart. And it's just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, why? I found myself saying that multiple times. Like, what the fuck
but
is happening? But
she gets screen time.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, the kind of like the weirder you are and kind of the more out there you are, it's like it's polarizing and it gets people to talk about it and it becomes a meme, right? And it's like that's something that I think we see kind of popping up in our culture just like as a whole, is the things that are popular are not necessarily the things that make sense, but they're the things that turn into memes. And the kind of more out there it is, the more memeable it is, right? Like the most prevalent thing you see on social media about the inauguration is Bernie memes.
Yeah.
Right? And so like, you know, it's like that's the end goal now. The end goal is how do I become a meme? It's not how can I be the most genuine version of myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that leads pretty well into do you think that we can enjoy Victoria? Is it okay to be entertained by her? Like, how do you feel about being entertained by her? Because my first reaction is thinking about like how she treated Marilyn and how honestly like truly gross that was, because she so clearly picked on someone who she could get away with picking on. But then I don't know, like I found her picking on Sarah kind of funny in some ways, because Sarah seemed like very much able to throw it right back at her and in a better position than Victoria.
Yeah, and it's hard to like make the claim that anyone deserves to be like picked on or whatnot, but like Marilyn did literally nothing. And, you know, literally that's another thing Victoria's saying all the time. But like Marilyn didn't do anything, and at least like even just like as a viewer watching what Sarah did, you're like, oh no, that's not okay. Like that's kind of like.
And it went too far with Sarah.
Yeah.
But Sarah was not like in the right either.
Right. Well, and I think one of the reasons that, we feel like it went to, I mean, yes, it did. It went too far under any circumstances, but I think it's exacerbated knowing her family backstory,
Yeah.
which is, that her dad has ALS and was diagnosed a little over 5 years ago, I think.
And actually, Karen asked a question that I want to get to next, but also Sarah gave an interview with Lauren Zima on Entertainment Tonight. It's particularly relevant that it's Lauren Zima because Lauren Zima is dating Chris Harrison, who's the host of The Bachelor. So you can kind of assume that anything that happens on Lauren Zima's show is sanctioned by Bachelor producers. And Sarah talked about how initially that when she was applying to be on the show, producers told her that she would be allowed to call home and talk to her family, and that she never was.
That is not surprising at all to hear.
So Karen is asking how much we think it's editing that makes Victoria look bad and how much is just her. I think that girl is controlling her edit better than almost anyone I have ever seen.
Yeah.
She is playing a character.
That I was just going to say that. That's the thing, is she's playing a character, right? Like, I don't think it's so much that like the editors are only and producers are only choosing to put in kind of like the weird, wacky things she's doing. I think that whenever the cameras are around, that's what she's doing. Because she knows that that's what will get her the most airtime. The producers probably aren't going to pick through a bunch of, unless they're trying to tell a longer story, but it's
right. And
clear that that's the story Victoria wants to tell.
And here's the thing, like, unless you are long game in this, like you are going to like the top 3 or 4, everything that you're getting out of this show is Instagram followers, because Instagram followers are levied into literal dollars, because it is so profitable to be an influencer if you are a successful influencer. And then also, if you reach like big enough personality status, you might get invited to be on Bachelor in Paradise, which then lets you get more Instagram followers. Also, Bachelor in Paradise is my favorite form of The Bachelor because it's so absurd. And there's just like, it's like fucking chaos on a beach.
I haven't watched it as much in the last couple of seasons ever since the, I forget their names. I think Corinne was one of them. I think.
Oh no, that
whole thing. I just
Corinne and Demario. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like never was able to get back into it. I want to though, but like that's another thing. I don't think Victoria's end goal is to be with Matt.
Oh.
Her end goal is to be on Paradise. Her end goal is to become such a big Bachelor personality that they keep inviting her back to other things, because you get paid for that. You get paid for all of those appearances. You get paid.
Right. You don't get paid. You don't get paid to be on the show. You don't get paid to be a contestant. You don't get paid to be on Bachelor in Paradise. But as soon as you are a contestant that is showing up on as a guest, you are making money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So are any of their end goals to be with the main person? I assume at this point mostly about exposure. Yes and no. I do think that there are some people who want exposure and to date the lead, or are open to experiencing whatever with the lead and potentially getting engaged or whatever, in addition to wanting Instagram followers. Like,
right. It's one of those, look, like if there wasn't an end goal beyond I might marry this person, no one would do it. No one would put themselves through what the people who go on this show are put through.
And before Instagram, the end game was probably more, well, that's a weird story, doing something interesting.
Right. Well, because it even still then would lead to other things, right? Like it would still lead to becoming a personality on other reality shows. Like how many Bachelor contestants ended up on like The Real World, or, like other reality shows on other networks. And, some people were far more blatant about it. But like, I do think that they probably have a fair mix of people who are there like genuinely for the right reasons. TRR as that
or TRR. Yeah.
TRR.
If you date the lead, would you possibly get more followers? Yeah, absolutely. The more, so if you date the lead, that means you're the last person on the show. Like if you win. So more screen time always means more followers. It also tends to mean a more positive edit. So a more positive edit also gets you more followers.
Right. Because I want the narrative at the end of the whole thing from the fans to be, I was a fan of this person the whole time. Because keep in mind, they don't start this edit until they've shot the whole thing. They already know how it pans out. They already know what story they want to tell and what story they're going to craft based on what happened. And so like, yeah, if you're probably not going to end up being someone portrayed as caught up in drama as much. And if you are, you're definitely the one who's going to look like the bigger person the whole time.
So that's a good segue into talking about Katie Thurston, who is like my current favorite contestant.
I love her.
I love her so much. I mean, my other favorite is Chelsea, but she's not on the show very much, and that's entirely based off of her Instagram. Because Chelsea is like, seems badass and funny and is like drop dead.
Which one is Chelsea again?
She's the one with the shaved head.
Yes, I was gonna say, is it the shaved head girl? Because I'm in love with her.
She lives in New York too.
Yeah.
So Katie Thurston. Here's a picture I took from her Instagram. She got herself known on the show by entering. Her limo entrance involved a cheap vibrator. So she is dildo.
Oh, you got an unedited photo.
Yeah, no, I got the unedited photo from her Instagram.
So it's a giant black bar if you go to watch it on Hulu, which is worse than just showing it.
Yeah, they do that on purpose though.
Of course.
So here she is with her dildo. She basically, it's like a joke about quarantine and how the vibrators kept her good company, but she'd like to date someone. She goes around for the rest of the night with the vibrator. She gets to say something along the lines of
tapping people on the shoulder with it.
She taps someone on the shoulder. I never thought I'd get to boop a pageant queen on the shoulder with a dildo.
Victoria, did she? I think.
No, it was someone else.
Okay, all right.
Why though? Honestly, like the limo entrance is the one time that you're guaranteed screen time. So people like to stand out.
And you're not even guaranteed that much screen time as a limo entrance. It's just
right. So thing about Katie is that she is already a successful TikToker. This is something that happened in quarantine, but before she was chosen for the show, she has something, I have the follower count here, something like 250,000 followers on TikTok with over 1 million likes. She posts like funny sex positive jokes. In general, she's like a fun follow. And she has come in as kind of this like, people have been comparing her to past Bachelorette Caitlin Bristow, whose limo entrance on Chris Soules' season was to make a joke about Chris Soules is a farmer. You can plow my fucking field any day.
Yes.
But so Katie makes crude jokes and is funny and relatable and down to earth. She's also, in her own words, she's got not really, but a slightly more normal girl look than a pageant queen or model. Mostly just because she's shorter. She's very pretty. But so is everyone on the show.
She's very pretty, but she's not as, I guess, like glammed up from
right. She looks, she's very pretty, but she doesn't look like she has extensions and a fake tan and like all of the things that like where you're like, are you real?
Right.
And she's too short to be a model. So the first thing in this episode, so in the third episode, she got like a particularly large amount of screen time and a very good edit. So she's the one who gets stolen from.
I feel like, you know, like since you mentioned her edit, like that very easily, like they very easily could have decided to like only show random shots of her carrying the dildo around, intercut with the other girls talking shit about her because of it, because you know they were, and they showed a little bit of that, but nothing that was like super inflammatory. For the most part, they showed people like kind of laughing about it, being like, oh my god, I can't believe she did that, but like, but not the way that like the girl who entered wearing her lingerie and had him pick her dress, right, like the way that they showed the other girls talking about her was so much worse, and it just like so much like, you know, like, ugh, how dare she, like meh, 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 and like really negative things. But you know, that just goes to show, right, like Katie got a very positive edit. They could have flipped it.
And I don't think that she's gonna win. I don't even think she'll make it to hometowns, just because they're not giving her a strong like chemistry edit with Matt, but they're giving her a really strong like possible Bachelorette edit, which I'd be super into, by the way. But so her response to getting stolen from, she's mad. She goes and talks to the other girls. They encourage her to go back and steal Matt back. So she attempts to steal Matt back, but I think she's like a little bit too nice for this to work. So she agrees to give Sarah like 2 more minutes, and she just stands there in the corner looking at them.
Stands to the side, like.
It's so funny. It's like, I thought it was a power move. I know not everybody thinks that it was a good move. I thought it was fucking hilarious.
I thought it was a power move for sure. I definitely thought that was a very intentional, like, I'm going to stand here though, because whatever you're saying better be important enough.
Yeah. And then she also, after that, goes to talk to Sarah and is basically like, I'm mad at you. Like, I get it. I get that you're insecure, but I'm mad at you. I don't hate you. I'm mad at you. But this is the next picture, her conversation with Sarah. Her conversation with Sarah right before Sarah leaves. So her first reaction to Sarah saying, I want to leave. So anytime that someone's like having a crisis and someone comes in to talk to them and save them, that is an intentional producer, whatever, permission move. So Katie first, she starts talking about saying to Sarah, I don't want you to leave, because if you leave and Matt picks me, I will always wonder if Matt wishes he had picked you instead, which is like this like beautiful, like
I don't want to be anyone's runner up, and you should play that out.
Right. And it's like this also like this very sign, like here for the right reasons, like all of that, but like
praising the process.
Yeah. But like, seriously, like it is saying like, I believe in this process and you leaving is breaking that. But then Sarah starts talking about how her dad has ALS and he has survived past 5 years, which is the predicted lifespan after an ALS diagnosis. And she's like, I don't know, he could die any day now. And Katie, probably obviously chosen to go talk to Sarah because of this. Her dad died in 2012. She doesn't talk about why, but she's basically like, that actually changes everything. Go be with your family. And they have this like really like tearful, loving, compassionate conversation. And she affirms that Sarah is making the right decision because family is the most important thing possible, which again, very strong positive edit. And then she goes out to talk to everyone and she's basically like, look, guys, you took this too far. You were too mean to Sarah. She's leaving partially because of you, but she also has some family shit going on and she needs to go be with them. And it's like this like very like, it's a lot of screen time for something that isn't the main plot. Like she's not the main plot. Sarah's the main plot. And B,
and she's
like
getting more screen time.
It's incredibly positive.
Yeah. It feels like a Bachelorette edit to me.
It does.
Right? Like they're almost framing her up to be too good for the position she's in, right? She clearly is, you know, praising the process. She cares about it. She's saying very positive things about the show and the game in general. And, and she's also reiterating that, family is the most important thing. That is a theme
Right.
throughout all of Bachelor and the Bachelor shows, is that
and
it's
it used
all
to
about
be
family.
And it used to be that you'd expect the Bachelor or Bachelorette to come from like someone's top 4. But even if they weren't the past season, they'd come from someone's top 4. But Hannah Brown was in 6th or 7th place on Colton's season. And she is the most popular Instagram personality of anybody who's ever been on The Bachelor by like several hundred thousand. She has one of the only people with over 2 million followers, and she far and away has more than everyone else.
She's a great example of like how different edits and different roles that the producers cast her in can shed a very different light on how you're
and also a really good example of controlling your edit.
Yeah,
because they set her up for a massive fight with another girl she's a pageant queen, another Miss USA contestant from the same year who didn't like her, and they ended up like they had their like confrontational moment, but instead of going to a 2-on-1 and having major drama, they like had a heart-to-heart conversation where they settled their differences together, which is like one of the smartest things I've seen someone do on this show. Because they stopped letting them make a story out of their fight.
Yeah, right. And I think that's something that you start to see where if you're really like Bachelor, Bachelorette contestant for the next upcoming season, if you're able to flip that story, it's the difference between leaning into the drama as a means to become a Bachelor personality versus pulling yourself out of it and consistently being the better person, consistently setting yourself up to be almost too good for it, but humbly so, to the point where it's like it doesn't come off to be like you're
like too good for it, but you think it's the right thing anyway, so you want to be a part of it. Right. And the show loves that shit. Right. I also just like would be happy to see Katie, because I feel like it would be nice to have a not super Christian lead. Like a lot of the leads are like, it is very, very big thing to have Bible quotes in your Instagram profile, and Matt James led a fucking prayer
at the very beginning. First time walked in, was like, I'm gonna pray over this process, basically.
And yeah.
Hannah B was very religious. Luke P.
Jesus, I fucked in a windmill and Jesus still loves me. So there's like a tension between sex positive Christians and non-sex positive Christians on the show. But it would be nice to just have a sex positive person who might be Christian, but isn't like, I'm putting a Bible quote in my Instagram profile level of religious. Isn't even like on Tayshia's season, someone got kicked off because she couldn't see a future with someone who is agnostic. Like, and like that might have just been an excuse, because I think she's like legitimately into the person she actually chose. Like they're very cute and seem to really like each other, but still. So we already kind of touched on thinking that Katie's getting like a very like positive potential Bachelorette edit. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit to talk about like the wider Bachelor Nation, because Claire and Dale broke up, which EJ, they weren't even interested in watching this season. Like they didn't
care. I wanted to care so badly.
I found the Tayshia half of the season more interesting. Like it wasn't perfect, but it was a much more typical Bachelorette season. The Claire stuff, I was just kind of like, what the fuck is okay? So Claire was the person chosen as Bachelorette. She's an older contestant. She was on Juan Pablo's season, which was a long time ago.
We should clarify older means she was what, 38, 39?
She was 39.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm 30 and I'm too old to be on this show. Let's be clear.
Yeah, same. I'm also 30 and too old to be on the show, which is something I'm disappointed about because I had high hopes for Claire being older, and it was like it didn't matter. It just didn't matter, and like I'm afraid they're going to use that as an excuse to never have an older Bachelor or Bachelorette.
So EJ and I are a month apart. I guess we are about the same age as Tayshia. I mean, we're both way too gay to be on this show. Like,
I know, we would just like hit on the rest of the people in the house.
Fun.
And see, that's why I'm just like waiting for the queer person to be on.
I mean, also like a show that's like so clearly about non-monogamy, and then like the ideal end is not. It's like
it's so weird. It's like I just didn't know I could have these feelings for more than one person, and I just what do I do? And it's like it's fine. Just go with it.
So fun fact, way there. Early Bachelor seasons, Bob Guinea dated his final two for 6 months.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's amazing. I love it.
Anyway, so Claire was the first COVID Bachelorette. She was cast before we went into lockdown. She was supposed to have a normal season. That didn't happen. She was very much advertised as the oldest Bachelorette ever, which she was. She was 39 when her season started. Mm-hmm. And she left early with her final pick, Dale. And there's a lot of things going on here. People were like wondering if she was talking to him ahead of time. At this point, listening to her talk, I actually like pretty seriously believe that she just like literally fell in love with this man by watching his Instagram stories, which might be worse than them talking beforehand. But I think it might have happened.
I
don't know. But anyway, point being, they left early because they got engaged and they broke up, a few months earlier than I expected. Bullshit, I'll get to your question in a second. And first, Dale puts out a statement to confirm their breakup. Here, I can call it up on my screen too. Sorry, I'm waiting.
Yeah, it's there. I can read it.
Okay. I wanted to share with you all that Claire and I have decided to go our separate ways. We appreciate the love and support we've received from so many people, but this is the healthiest decision for both of us at the time. We strongly believe in leading with love and remaining true to oneself, something our families have taught and instilled in us throughout our lives. We only hope the best things for one another. Initially, he posted this to his Instagram story too with his signature on it, which is like fucking weird, but that's totally beside the point. Claire responded this morning with, I was made aware of a mutual statement at the same time you all were, so I've needed some time to really digest this. Speaking for myself, my intentions with this relationship have always been really clear, so the truth is I am crushed. This was not what I expected or hoped for, and I'm still trying to process this. 2020 was one hell of a year with COVID, battling severe anxiety post-show, balancing a public new relationship, all while slowly losing my mother. It hasn't been ideal circumstances, but that is life, right? No comma. I have been looking forward to the light at the end of the tunnel. Our relationship was not perfect, but I can say I was genuinely invested with it with all my heart. I may not have all the answers, but I do know this. I will continue to show up, stand by my word, and be committed to love. XO, Claire. Continue to show up is like her theme. Anyway, looks like they didn't talk before putting out their Instagram posts, which is like a rookie mistake, honestly. And Dale is like super social media savvy, so it's a little surprising. But honestly, like they went into engagement really quickly. Dale's 32. Claire wanted to have babies immediately. Claire's mom is dying. Claire wanted Dale to move to Sacramento with her. Dale wants to be famous. So it wasn't exactly a relationship bound for success. Yeah. I expected them to last a little bit longer.
Yeah,
and to have a less dramatic end.
Like it's just, again, I'm back to it being disappointing that just, I was really hoping that the Claire dynamic would be able to bring a level of maturity to the show that maybe we haven't seen before, and maybe just like get a different vibe out of the whole thing. But it isn't, which, you know, like I honestly shouldn't be surprised by that, right? Claire was on Juan Pablo's season. She was on Bachelor in Paradise. She was on Winter Games, right?
Claire got engaged to someone on Winter Games that she had broken up with, and they were just like talking between the end of the show and the reunion special, and like this dude proposed to her on the reunion special, and they broke up like a month later.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. You know, like I was hoping that we would start to maybe see more of it, and that it would get a different type of engagement.
I also will say that, like, I don't think Claire is honestly like a savvy enough liar, unlike probably the majority of the people on this show, to fake how head over heels, weirdly, suddenly in love she was with Dale. And he might have liked her, but I do feel bad for her that she fell for someone that hard that didn't actually reciprocate in the way that he might have been saying that he did. Because I think Dale was like a pretty standard, like any of us. Like if I went on this show, I'm not like I don't want to get married anyway, but like expecting that.
Right. Because it was like, what, like 2 weeks and they got engaged on the show and left, which, I think, earlier we had the question of, what was I going to say? I just lost it. Earlier we had the question of like, is anyone like genuinely there, like to find love or like to be with the contestant, right? I think Claire is potentially one of those situations where like she wants it so badly, and she like, I think she genuinely believes this is the only way to find it, and she's managed to walk that line of like, like genuine interest in what's happening and personality to the degree that she keeps getting brought back for things. Because, like her whole claim to fame on Juan Pablo's season was she like, they were, I don't remember where, somewhere tropical. And, she like went to his room and was like, I want to swim in the ocean. And they like went swimming in the ocean. And it was like this huge thing. All the rest of the girls were mad about it because she like went and had this moment with him and like
almost certainly like jerked him off in the ocean or something.
They definitely like did something very non-Christian in the ocean, and everyone was upset about it. It was a huge deal, and that was something that kind of solidified her as a Bachelor Nation personality.
Right. And then when Juan Pablo broke up with her, she came in second. She's basically was like, I would never want you to be the father of my children.
Right. And that was the like moment she set herself above it.
Yeah. Anyway, it ends. So the last thing that I wanted to show was Dale. Dale also got weirdly answered some paparazzi questions. Like they asked him if he wanted to be in Paradise. He's like, I'm not ready for that yet. And then they were like, but would you want to be the Bachelor? And I'm not ready for that yet. And apparently this paparazzo is also like someone he's been seen hanging out with. So like the whole thing is like super weird and kind of staged, and I'm not really sure what he's going for with it. But I thought
it's a failed attempt to become the personality now, because he's in it and he's got the news, he's got the attention. So like, how can he continue to capitalize it? How can he continue to make sure that he's still a topic of conversation? Like right now, right? Like as the more that we talk about him, the better it is for him. And that's kind of the goal.
I mean, I don't follow a lot of Bachelor people on Instagram, but I do follow him. I don't know if I'll always follow him, but like,
I don't remember if I'm following him. I do have an entirely separate Instagram account that's specifically so I can follow only Bachelor related things. So I could try to, because it's a commitment. Like, it's a commitment to like understand, and you're on a whole other level than I am at the moment. I need to catch up on the Game of Roses podcast, because it really does.
They put out a special 16-minute episode analyzing the breakup notes today.
Oh my God. It's just their level of I'm going to plug the show now because it's so good. It's enhanced my enjoyment of the show like exponentially, because like they do like kind of like a sports analytics level breakdown of the show, because they know like everything that we've been saying. Obviously we agree with the things that they say because we like the show, but it's all about those followers, and it's also all about how do I get that crown, become the next Bachelor, Bachelorette, and they break it down in a way that I really enjoy.
Also, it's also like super affirming in a sense to be watching like legitimately progressive people talk about the contradictions and being a fan of this show. And it almost like, I don't know, it feels like it like makes me feel like less of a weirdo for listening to this incredibly strange podcast. Anyway, so Bolshi said, sounds like you really need a Bachelor season where it's a bunch of poly people of various sexualities and just get them to work out whatever polycule ends up looking like. I mean, like, sure, I'll go on reality TV. That's fine.
Wait, where do you see that comment?
In the chat. I scrolled up because I knew that she said it and I didn't want to forget.
Way up there.
And then Karen said, I want a Bachelorette that's 45-year-old divorcee, and all of her suitors are age appropriate, inappropriate, or age inappropriate, or appropriate, and have solid health insurance plans. Oh my God. God, that health insurance. I mean, if you're going to be an influencer and you want to marry someone, might as well marry someone with good employer health insurance. After Matt James, what are his chances of becoming the next Bachelor? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And, considering it took them 25 seasons to crown a Black Bachelor, I don't know what the chances of having 2 Black Bachelors in a row are. Remains to be seen. I think that they were trying to kind of set up Ben from Tayshia's season for a potential Bachelor edit, but we've got a year. We've got an entire Bachelorette season before Paradise, and that'll produce another 30 men to choose from. So it's really hard to say. Right. I mean, like, I have fingers crossed for Dr. Joe, but he was also a contestant on Claire and Tayshia's season, and he's an anesthesiologist from New York who he's a runner, and he runs specifically with he's an Achilles guide, which is a group of runners who specifically work with blind and visually impaired people to make it safe to run in public places. Specifically, you see a lot of people in Central Park. Anyway, it's really as someone who also runs in Central Park sometimes in a previous life where it wasn't cold and dangerous to be outside. Let's see. Something to be said about the mixed medium reality experience the show is lending itself to. Interesting as an art form, if nothing else. See, Bolshi? This is why I talk about the show all the fucking time.
Because you start peeling back the layers and you're like, oh, this is like not like, it goes deep. It's all a conspiracy. There's like, it's just, there's so much, and it's really fascinating. And I think it's just like a fascinating, like, social experiment almost.
There's so much to it. You know, there were accounts that were tracking how people responded to the insurrection, the attempted coup at the Capitol. And there was a statistical analysis of people who acknowledged it at all, who had over 1 million followers from The Bachelor. And then additional, like, more like human error analysis of who responded with more than, let's all hug each other and fill the world with love. Or I am learning and listening.
What were the results of the? I want to see this because
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Actually, you probably want to follow Bachelor Data. on Instagram.
I'll do that right now.
Because she like legit is just like having fun with statistics. And it's, again, sports stats. It's their patterns. It's totally fascinating. And like, who is the audience for the show? So like, honestly, like, who is making TV for us, EJ? Like, who's actually making TV for us?
No one. That's the thing. We are such an underserved audience in pop culture and media and everything in general. It's not even funny. Like, there's a reason why, like, anytime anything even remotely queer pops up in a something, we all flock to it.
Well, I had ended, my last thing that I showed was Demi and her new puppy. So Demi, first off, this puppy is adorable. But like, honestly, Demi dated a girl on Paradise for like 10 minutes, and I am in love with her because she is the only person, she's one of like a small handful of out bisexual contestants ever. And she's the only one to have ever dated another woman on camera. And then they broke up like a month after Paradise and getting engaged. Who cares? She has this puppy now. And like, it's like those crumbs. And it's the same crumbs that we were getting in high school when I was watching like fucking Tila Tequila. And
it's all queer baiting.
Yeah.
It's like, it's queer baiting and also queerness for the straight male gaze.
Yeah. But also look at that puppy.
But no, it's really cute. I just want to like smush my face in its face.
And I knew like all of it was like this like facade of progressiveness in the show, this like weird, like exploitative thing. And yet I was so invested in Demi and Christian, even though like their relationship was honestly scripted, because I was so desperate to see any bit of myself in this show. And like, I'm like way too queer for this show. I don't give a fuck that the person that I'm dating is dating someone else. Like, are they cool? Can we be friends? Like, what are you like?
Yeah.
The show sets you up to be friends with the person that is also dating your partner. Like, people walk away with more meaningful friendships than romantic relationships.
Like that might be one of the reasons I like these shows so much, is because it's one of the few representations out there of like the relationship structure I have. It's a super fucked up version of it that is like, but it's like one of the only places in pop culture that I can point to and say like, that is actually consensual non-monogamy right now.
Yeah.
Like, and they all kind of like act and react as if it isn't, but it is. And like, they often, even when they're super, super jealous and up in their feelings about it, acknowledge like, I signed up for this. I knew what was going to happen.
Right. And it's just like what Katie was saying, like, even like when she was like, I don't know if he, like, I won't know how he truly feels about me if you don't let your relationship with him play out. It's like this idea that like we both have to live out our, like, his needs and our needs with each other to the fullest to know that we are in the right place.
Yeah, and she makes it genuinely about what is best for the people involved, because she acknowledges that like it's not about control. You so often see the narrative being more about, I'm going to control the time by taking up all of it, or I'm going to make it so that he can't possibly have another relationship with someone else. Whereas like you have Katie saying like, I want you to have relationships with all of these other people because I want you to know for sure that you want to be with me and only me at the end of this, which we've seen before, right? That's not like completely unique to
no, she's far from the. So actually, Zach said the same thing. Zach, who ended up with Tayshia, and like, I'm like, I like get all jaded, and then I look at them and I'm like such a sap about their relationship because they're really fucking cute. But so Zach, during Fantasy Suites, which is when everyone fucks, or is implied to have sex. It's the only time you don't have a camera.
Yeah, it's the only time you ever get to spend together on the show.
So actually, from what I understand from interviews, like, yeah, you do have sex, but also because it's the only time without a camera, it's like prime time to have conversation because you haven't had a chance to have conversation with people off camera and you're expected to get engaged to them.
Which is funny because they actually make it more about, like, the edit makes it more about sex than I think anyone actually believes it is at the end of the day. You know, I think it's like, it's really just like, okay, this is your time to like spend a night together uninterrupted, and it's not like all scheduled and timed out, and you know, you can sleep in the same bed or not. Like,
but the moment it was clear that Zach was gonna be the overall winner of Tayshia's season was when one of her other final 3 people was like freaking out about the idea that Tayshia might be having sex with Ivan, who was the first person to go to Fantasy Suite. And Zach was like, she needs to do what she needs to do to know who she wants to pick. Yeah. And like that difference was how you knew who was going to win. Because there are patterns.
Yeah. And also sometimes that difference is like, I think one of the only times, do you remember, I think this was also Juan Pablo's season, Andy.
Yeah,
Andy actually, so like a couple of bachelorettes have come out of Juan Pablo's season, partially because he was an absolute dumpster fire of a person. But
also, actually, side note, there's interesting stuff about that because Charlene, of all people, defends him to the death.
Oh,
and I think that Juan Pablo got an unfavorable edit because it was easy to give a non-native English speaker an unfavorable edit, but that's the difference.
I should look into that more because like Andy, the morning after Fantasy Suites came out and it was just like, nah, I'm good, and like left. So she just like immediately set herself up to be like above it. Like, I am too good for the current Bachelor.
Like he said something to her that made her be like, I wanted to get out of the Fantasy Suite. And then she became the next Bachelorette. And you know, like she was a district attorney. Specifically, she doesn't believe that there's any racial bias in the judicial system. She's been seen in a red cap with white writing. But she was getting, which is like not atypical of Bachelor Nation, but she was getting that edit. If someone was paying me to date 30 people for 6 months, I wouldn't complain, honestly. I mean,
they break down. They all break down at some point. This pressure gets to them. They can't wrap their heads around having feelings for that many people.
She's a racist. Yeah, a lot of people on this fucking show are racist. And that's a different story for a different time because we can get into that forever. But one of the people getting a very positive edit on this show has liked some very racist Instagram posts and was part of a sorority that has never had a Black member and is from a sundown town. So she's got a lot of things against her.
Who's that?
Rachel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I need to there's like a balance of being so ingrained that you uncover things like that versus like blissfully unaware.
So I think this is a good note to go out on. So the messages of this show are interesting. It's conflicting, right? Like you've got like the extreme where you've got sex positive Katie, who's portrayed as a wonderful person. You've got Tayshia and Ivan talking about Black Lives Matter and being biracial and finally feeling seen by the people they grew up with because of BLM protests and seeing white people who they grew up with go into protests and finally feeling like they were actually being seen for who they are. And then you have people who are super MAGA, and you have people who are like so clearly racist, even if they're white girls on the show because they're not racist. They want to date a Black man, but they're so clearly fucking racist. And it's the same show. And ABC, it's also the most popular Monday night show. And
they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They're trying to get all of us together to get that advertising money. They're trying to get the evangelical Christian market. They're trying to get the MAGA bullshit market, and they're trying to get us.
It's we have something for everybody here in some capacity whatsoever, whether it's, you know, whether it's someone who's like watching it to make a joke out of it, or, you know, if you're someone who's like, oh, I'm going to follow this because like now they're saying that like ABC knows they have to say Black Lives Matter.
Right.
They have to like really make progress, because otherwise they're going to lose literally half of their viewership.
But we have a Black Bachelor who also has a white mom who's a known Trump supporter.
I was about to say we have a Black Bachelor who has a white mom who is a Trump supporter, and you know, he opened up the whole thing by praying, right? They're portraying him in a very, very specific way. And it's just it's fascinating, but they want the advertising money. They want our eyeballs on the show regardless of the reason. And it's working. It's worked for decades, literal decades.
So clearly EJ and I could talk about this forever. But it's 9:15, so I'm going to say that we should probably sign off because we were set to end at 9. Thank you everyone for coming. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. I actually am like weirdly on this Instagram live thing, but we'll talk. And I'll see you soon. Thank you for being here.
Thanks everybody.
Bye.